Cash-a-maniacs.
GeoGearHeads. Thanks for joining us for the Foolish Cashers edition of the GeoGearHeads, episode 170. I am the Bad Cop with Daryl W4, and we'll be talking for the next 45 minutes or so about some of the mistakes geocachers make and tips to avoid them.
We have some great stories from our fellow GeoGearheads to share, and we'll get to them in just a moment. I'm sure everyone is anxious to hear the winner for this week's question and prize from coinsandpins.com. Well, I've already been in touch with this week's winner. Picked a pair of those trackable state flags. Makes sense. So congrats, A. Demshar, and I'll have those in the mail to you shortly.
The right answers was learn, play, community, and shop. If you forgot or missed the question, we wanted to know the titles of the 4 new menu items to the right of the geocache. Stay with us though, because there's another question coming at the end of the show for another gift from coinsandpins.com.
But hey, let's jump right into the first of the Foolish Cacher stories. This email comes from Limax, who wrote, "Hey Daryl and Chris, when you first put out the request for foolish caching stories, I wasn't sure if I had my own. My son and I at Lake Del Val, so that I could retrieve a Kersplash GC5C58. But that was more than I wanted them to be safe, since it was a steep descent. We were still within earshot of one another. However, I got to thinking about it, and the most foolish thing I ever did was during International Earth Cache Day 2014, which was October 12th of last year. I had it in my mind to do an Earth Cache that would mean something to me, and not just like a grab-and-go sort of Earth Cache. So I decided to do Wind Caves, GC1KH9N, which was up on Mount Diablo in the San Francisco Bay Area. You know, you don't want to go up Mount Diablo. What do you think there, Chris? That does sound dangerous?
No, you should never mess with the devil.
Just the Mount Diablo. As many people know, we've been going through a pretty bad drought in California, which is continuing to get worse. When I stopped at the ranger station, I was warned by the ranger to look out for Yogi and Boo Boo.
Hey.
I should fill up my water bottle there, since all the water had been turned off at the campgrounds. I thanked her for the advice, but I didn't really plan on spending a long time up there, so I didn't think much of it. Oh, see, this is the mistake already. Here we go. I found parking pretty near the Earth Cache, and I pulled my foolish quest up Mount Diablo. I started by finding a couple of other caches close by, since Wind Caves seemed to be a pretty popular location. I found those without any trouble and went to find Wind Caves. I was able to do what was required for the Earth Cache, so I knew I earned my souvenir. And then I got to thinking. October 12th was also Columbus Day, although it was being celebrated later in order to give the government, banks, and schools a day off. I thought that I was about 10 caches away from 1492 caches, which would be a great goal for such a day. Mount Diablo is a great place for Earth caches, and I saw that there was another one close by, so I decided to hike up to that one. After finding that one, I found there was another cache 0.2 miles away, and thus I started about a 3-hour hike with no map and no water. I had a fairly good sense of direction, so I wasn't too worried about getting lost. However, about an hour and a half into my hike, the ranger's warning came back to me. I did pass through about 3 campgrounds on my hike and didn't find any water. Did I mention that October in California can be quite warm? I finally found another path that would lead me back to my car, and I did more caching along the way, ending with a DNF, since by that point I was too tired and dehydrated to give it much of a search. I finally made it back to my car and was able to down the rest of the lukewarm coffee that was in my coffee mug and drove back to the ranger station. I proceeded to fill up my water bottle there and drink a lot before driving off the mountain. All told, I collected 9 caches on a mountain, one short of my... I did happen to find one back in town, so I ended up with 1492 for the trip. This little excursion taught me that I should be more prepared even when I think I may only go for 1 or 2 caches. You never know when the bug might bite you to go for more.
Yeah, who hasn't done that? I've done that so many times.
That was a story right there.
That was.
I need a drink there. Ooh. Yeah, that's Yeah, I think a case of the one more itis is what that's called, isn't it?
Absolutely. I did that once and I accidentally went on a 30-mile bike ride. Um,
You accidentally went on a 30-mile bike ride?
I thought it was going to be 5 miles, and then it turned out to be 30 because there was this one more cache, then one more cache.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's very common. Absolutely, sure.
Yeah.
I do that with hiking. I do that. Yeah, a little quick trip turns into a 5-mile hike.
Yep. Yep.
I want you to go ahead and read the next one.
Right. We'll do. This is from Kratz Family 5 via email. In February, my husband and I took a trip to Vegas. Wanting to pack light, I didn't pack my GPSR. First mistake. I
Oh,
was
what?
going to use
Really?
my.
What?
I
What?
know, right?
In
Always.
Vegas, no less? Come on, are you kidding?
You pack the GPSR, then the underwear and socks. That's the rule.
You don't need underwear. I mean, what? Come
Just the
on.
socks. This is
Wow.
Vegas.
Right?
I was going to use my smartphone only. I figured I would be able to get everything on the fly.
Mm-mm,
There's
mm-mm,
always service where I live. Why
mm,
wouldn't it be any different anywhere else?
mhm.
We planned on going to the Hoover Dam, and there we just had to be a cache on the Arizona side. We got there, pulled up my phone, and no service. I couldn't do anything. No Arizona souvenir for me. Just another reason to go back.
Yep, that's yeah. I learned that mistake once going on a road trip, and I'm like, oh, I've got AT&T. I always have service, and sure enough, there you go. I went and we were hitting caches just along a trail, and boom, no, my service just kicked out, and didn't have it for a couple of hours, and terrible.
Yeah,
Yep.
I've done similar things. I loaded up. I actually had my GPSR and I loaded up with caches, but they didn't take for some reason. When I actually turned the GPSR on, there was nothing. Um, and I was only about 45 minutes away from home, but had no cell service because I live in the mountains, and that's the way it is. Um, and then I couldn't get cell service, so I was basically spent the whole day doing absolutely nothing. And it sucked. It really, really sucks. So always bring a GPSR and make sure it's loaded.
Absolutely, and in our chat room right here, Limax agrees as well. He would say absolutely. It's one of those things. It's like as much as the phone is a part of our lives and the technology, especially with geocaching as well. It's not every place you're going to get service. Your best bet is to bring that GPSR, load it with the caches in the area, do a pocket query, and just if anything for a backup, because you never know. You could bring your
Exactly.
phone as well and just use it as a backup, but bring it. Make sure I learned that lesson as well. I've learned it, and now I do it. I bring it just as a backup,
Yeah.
unless I'm going. The only time I usually really use a GPSR these days is if I'm going into the woods. If I'm using cars, I'm doing park and grabs. It's all with my phone. It's all with my smartphone.
Yeah, especially if you're going out in the desert like that. I've actually been in town and lost cell signal. There was, I think it's Spartanburg, South Carolina. I was doing a bunch of caches walking around town, and every time I got close to the main United States Postal Service office,
Mm-hmm.
the signal would block. And I just couldn't get any data whatsoever. And I'd walk like a tenth of a mile away, and I get full service, like 4 bars. But so you always got to be careful, especially when you're kind of near those more sensitive
Oh
areas, like
yeah. Oh,
the
I mean,
Hoover Dam or the.
you were looking at a large city like Chicago, and you're getting no service. You're getting, the blue circle around your phone. It's a big old circle because you're getting really weak service, and
Right, right.
it's bored. Um, as I'm moving on, Wet Coaster via email says the first would have to be when I got my account on geocaching.com in March 2007. I had just purchased a GPS, excuse me, a Magellan Explorist, so I thought could use it to find a geocache. So the object of this new to me hobby is to find the ones with the question marks. Needless to say, couldn't find any. Read the description? Why would I do that? Well, my first find was 5 years after I created my account in 2012. Wow, that's a heck of
That
a days without finding a cash ratio right there, isn't it?
that's insane. But kudos for sticking with it. I mean, that's
That's like a
5 years.
thousand. How many days is it? Wow, days without a cash is in the thousands. That's impressive.
I am impressed. That's
5 years later. Wow. He says his latest goof is showing up a week early for an event. Well, so you get the FTF on that, don't you? I would think.
I would hope so.
I would log it. I'd log it as a find.
Yeah, you were there.
I would totally log it for a fine, if you want my
Oh,
opinion.
absolutely. All's fair in love and caching, right?
All right, why don't you read the next one?
Alrighty. Let's see here. This is from Redbeard 4570. It says greetings. On Twitter, uh, you asked if I would be interested in sending in my snake nest encounter. Well, here it is. This day's adventure has several events that fall into the dumb or not so bright section.
Okay, well, hold on, right here. Let's stop right here. First of all, snake, right there. Snake nest is how he starts this story out.
Yeah, they could be good.
It's- how did this? You didn't. How did this not end with run? That'd be it. That'd be the end. Would be like turn the other way and run. But
Yeah,
let's go.
I'm already back in the car.
I'm done. All right, go ahead. Continue the story. Let's see where it goes.
Alrighty. So what happens when you ask your friends if they have plans and they say no, but what do you think about going to Castle Rock? A fun adventure involving geocaching, photography, off-road driving, and a Dodge Charger. There's your second mistake right there. And a near run-in with reptiles. Castle Rock is a wonderful area in west central Kansas that looks like it should be in Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, or that part of the country. GPS wasn't very sure of itself on that day. That's your third check. Having checked the logs and seeing that the hide had been found earlier in the day, we were 99% sure we could find it. So off we went. That's the fourth one right there.
Oh, how many times? Come on, it was found today. How hard can it be?
It's an easy one. How hard? Yeah. 4 hours later. So off we went. Q-Man Q, Leatherback, the Muggle parents of said teenager cachers, and myself over about a 50-foot area. My oh my. 50
50
feet.
feet. He could find in 50 feet.
I know, right? It's 4 of them.
My cords are that bad when I place a cache. Come on, dude. Really?
My oh my, so many possible spots. So I heard the Muggle mom saying, "Hey, this hole looks like a good spot. Hope there's no snakes in it." Which is kind of the equivalent of, here, hold my beer. About 15 seconds later, we're all here. Snakes! The hole is full of snakes! Why does it have to be snakes? So now this lady has been known to cry wolf just to get the crew excited. Well, not this time. Said hole was a snake den or nest. A minimum of 5 snakes were in it, which is like, 5 snakes too many.
That's plenty for me. That's a. That could be a million. That's plenty.
Yeah. Still being a cool day and the rock being even cooler, the snakes were barely moving. And that's just how we like our snakes. LOL. Not sure, but odds are the snakes were rattlesnakes, as this is rattler country. That's even worse. But you can tell, though, because they rattle.
Right.
It's kind of the definition of the snake.
That's the giveaway.
After clicking a few pictures, number 5.
A safe distance is the car. Unless you're in a car, there is no safe distance for pictures.
Absolutely not. No. Hope you had a telephone.
Throw a flash on there too. Let's irritate the snakes while we're at it.
Let's get some selfies. So after taking a few pictures, we were back on the hunt for the cache GC1HNYX.
The cache is called OMG Snakes. I'm just kidding. I don't know what it's called, but
we found it a nice, say, 50-plus feet from the net.
See, there you go.
That's only 50 feet. That's
right. Come on, yeah, my cords are worse than that.
And after discovering Captain America in the container, we all LOL'd that we had nothing to fear from here on. Again, that's 6.
A plethora of mistakes.
Yes. Wrong. This is rough country with several roads into it. None are smooth, but one can be handled in about any car, which is good because you have a Charger.
Right.
The other, well, it is proof why Jeeps are popular. Right. On the way in, we took the Any Rig Road?
What's an Any Rig Road? Maybe I'm too much of a city boy. I don't know what Any Rig Road is.
I have no idea what that means. I think that means they took the safe road, the Any Rig, any car,
the easy way, the cement way.
Yes, the easy way in.
The paved way.
Let's see if it works out for them.
Okay.
So we did just the reverse and followed it back out. No. Oh, I think the Charger can make it. So off we go on the 4x4 road.
Right.
About 100 feet from the end, it was clear the Charger wasn't going to make it.
Oh, no.
But not to worry, a side road was an option. But it had a challenge also, that being a twisting turn with a grade. So Leatherback said...
What's a grade?
I think it's like when the road is on an angle.
Oh,
kind of like a racetrack.
oh, okay.
I'm guessing.
I don't know. Sure, that sounds good to me.
Treacherous road for a car. This is almost like a Top Gear episode. Um, it's the craziest road in the world. So Leatherback said he will spot and hops out. As his dad grinds his teeth in fear of the dreaded sound of a car frame on rock, Leatherback waves
Mm.
him on with, "No problems, lots of clearance." To everyone's relief, the trusty Charger made it out without even a wheel spin. When asked how much clearance the frame had, the spotter said, "Not much, but the right front wheel has lots." It was a foot off the ground.
Wow.
Gee, this is a Top Gear episode. Um, oh, the joy of teenagers. And just for the record, the first person that popped in my mind after the rock crawl was Scott Burks. Gee, I wonder why.
I don't know. I wonder why. LOL. But thank you. I'm sure Scott would appreciate that name drop. Thank you.
Yeah, Scott. Only Scott was here. I wonder what he's doing tonight.
Appreciate that name drop.
Yeah. All right, so finish it off. Says, keep up the great show. P.S. We also grabbed the Earth cache at that location.
Oh, nice. Limax in the Q&A says, wow, that beats me. For me, it was a month after I signed up for premium. It's only 30 days before he found his first cache. Yeah, thousand's a lot. That's a lot.
I mean, that's just amazing dedication. I mean, my hat's off.
What about you? It is. What about you? You got any funny stories?
I was thinking of that. I have a couple. They're not quite as great as these, but it's kind of a stupid thing to do. Is one of my favorite caching stories is that I started geocaching in Belgium, even though I'm Canadian, or from the Pacific Northwest, and live in the States. My first cache was in Belgium.
Really?
Yeah, I was on a work trip there, and a coworker. I was in the work trip for like 4.5 months, and but a month in, a coworker from another office came in and offered to go geocaching as like a weekend activity, and I said, sure, I'll go. So that was great. But then I was in Europe for another 3.5 months, and I didn't find another geocache. And in that time, I went through 6 different countries.
Oh. Oh,
So
that's
to this
painful.
day, I look at that
That's
map and I
painful.
weep. It's like I could have had all these countries.
Yeah, anybody who knows me knows I have a plethora of ridiculous stories that over the years. One that I don't tell very often, but it's a classic story is I was doing a bike trail with short units, and we were in Wisconsin. We're doing something called the 400 Trail. It's a couple hundred caches down a trail. We got off to a late start, but we took 2 cars. We put one at one end and one at the other end. So we'd have, it's a 15 to 20 mile bike ride, and we knew we didn't want to ride it back. We didn't want to do 30 miles that day. We just wanted to do 15. So we put one car one end, one on the other end, and drove back. Met. I don't know how we did it. We got we dropped one off and headed. So off we go. We're having a great time finding caches. Not really DNFing anything. We're almost done. We're about 13 miles into a 15-mile bike ride. Shorty suddenly stops on the bike and just starts screaming F-bombs and OSHs. And I'm like, wow, what's the big deal? She goes, the keys to the car that's in front of us. I go, yeah. She goes, the keys are in the car behind us.
Oh.
So she left the keys to the car that's 2 miles away in the car that's 13 miles away.
So what?
Yeah.
That sucks.
Brutal. Yeah.
Yes.
You gotta remember, we're in the middle of Bungho, Wisconsin, in the middle of like there's this bike trail. So we finish up the trip, finish off the caches, and we get in this tiny little town. I don't even know what it was. Found the only bar open. I mean, it was like 8 o'clock at night, but like the only thing open was a bar. She calls her sister to come get us. Well, she was pissed because her sister was about probably about 20 miles away. Lived about 20 miles away, so she literally had to come get us. We're not riding 50 miles back. We were exhausted. And we had some dinner, sat at the bar, got a little toasty, and waited for her sister to come rescue us. But yeah, that's pretty much the stupidest thing. I didn't personally do it, but I was a witness to and a part of. That was one of the craziest things that she's done to us.
Yeah, that's yeah. I have one. I actually tested a guardrail once.
You tested a guardrail?
I tested it. They work.
Did it work?
Yeah, I was doing it was a park and grab. It was actually a guardrail cache, and I pulled into the parking lot, and I stopped my van. I call it the Geo Van of Destiny. I stopped in a parking spot. I get out, and I realize, crap, didn't put the car in park. And the car inches forward before I can hit the brake. Thunk! It hits the guardrail. It was
Oh.
only like 2 feet in front of me, so it was barely like a paint, just a little bit of paint scratch. But it was
Uh-huh.
like, oh, that dreaded feeling of you just hit something with your car. And then, I just backed up a bit, put it in park, turn off the engine because I didn't turn off the engine either because I was only going to be gone for 3 minutes.
Uh-huh.
Parked. Then I went out, found the cache. Very easy find, thankfully. Then
Was it on said guardrail that you just?
it was on said guardrail. So I was like, you know what? These guardrails really work, and it protected the cache very well.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I've done many, many stupid things. I mean, I've had guns pointed at me from police, and but it's as fun it is we've all done stupid things that while caching, but that's part of it. As long as you live to tell the tale, so to speak. Just be careful. Just I mean, I don't advise climbing a huge tree by yourself, and I mean, like trying to keep yourself out of harm's way, but. Part of the fun is the stories behind it, and making the stories behind it, and that's why it's great that the cache with friends and the cache with other people because that's kind of what makes the stories. And so these are a lot of great stories we have here. Wet Coaster, who's actually on with us in the Q&A room, says my 5-year hunt for my first find is either dedication or blind stubbornness. Is what he says.
Both.
5 years, man. Come on, Wet Coaster.
I'm actually curious to know if his first find was a puzzle cache or not.
He also wants to know if did you knock the cache off the guardrail?
No, I didn't. It was
Really? Was
nicely.
it?
Yeah. I mean, it was a substantial guardrail. I mean, it would have taken a lot to.
Yeah, here whenever where we are, a lot of times the planes actually knock the caches off the guardrail. You have to magnetic it to the guardrail because the low flying planes shake it off the guardrail. It's
Was
really
that
weird.
near the airports, or
Uh-huh, yeah,
or
like
did
near
you
O'Hare.
have like a plethora of low-flying aircraft?
Well, there's a couple of smaller. It's even the smaller ones do it too. But there's a couple of around O'Hare. There's a couple of like the not the commuter, but like the jets
Regional?
ones, like the smaller jet ones. Like the personal ones.
Okay, right.
Like those guys. There's a bunch of those guys around as well, and those even knock them off too. Like you
That's
have
shocking.
to.
I wouldn't think
Yeah.
they would.
No, you have to secure them pretty good, or they're just gonna go flying out of the ground. Yeah. All right. Anything? You got any other stories to tell before we announce the winner here?
I think I'm out of stories.
That's all. That's the only stupid things you've ever done, really?
I've probably done many stupid things. Those are the only ones that come to mind at the moment. I mean, of course, everyone's done the silly things like taking the hard way in and the easy way out, or climbing up cliffs that you shouldn't have been climbing up at the time
Oh yeah,
because you were
I'm
alone by
sure.
yourself. There's a mountain near here. It's really a big hill because there's actually real mountains near here. But it was a big hill. It's kind of the highest peak in the town. There's a geocache up there. And 2 years ago, I DNF'd it. So last year, I was determined that I was going to go up there and I was not going to DNF it. So I went up. I marched up the mountain. The access is a forestry road type thing. So it was an easy kind of direct hike up to
Hmm.
get to the top. But at the top, there's kind of a rocky face that's probably about 20 feet high.
Hmm.
And the cache was somewhere in the general location of this rocky face, and it was right near the edge, so you weren't sure if you were supposed to be at the top or at the bottom.
Hmm.
So I kind of walked along the top, couldn't see any obvious hiding spots. So I went around and started walking along the bottom,
Hmm.
and I couldn't see any obvious hiding, or there were some spots, but I couldn't find the cache, couldn't find it anywhere. I looked around everywhere, and I was doggone determined to find this cache. So I started looking up halfway up the cliff and goes, you know what? There may be some holes right up in there that you could hide a cache in. So I started climbing up, and anybody who knows me, I'm about as graceful as a bull moose. Um, yeah. I was, climbing my way up. I weigh 300 pounds, so I've I step on a little bit of loose dirt, it's going to fly.
It's gonna
Um,
slide. Slide.
so, but I'm climbing up there, and I'm doing quite well for myself. I get halfway up, and I'm holding onto trees, and I'm kind of tucked in another tree, and I'm like good 10 feet up. And then I realized to get to that hole to look into it, I kind of have to turn myself somewhat upside down. So I'm
Hmm.
hanging off this
Yeah, you gotta
cliff
come around
all
like
by
that.
myself, hanging
Yeah.
upside down off the thing. Then I realized at that moment that I am about, one
How
stupid
stupid.
slip away from death, and I'm no one around me forever. So that was the moment I was going, yeah, this is kind of dumb. So
So
I,
you DNF'd it?
actually, I did not.
Oh, that's good.
I finished climbing up the hill, up the cliff, because it was easier than climbing back down. And then I took another look across the top, and right at the edge of the cliff, kind of a bit farther away from where I climbed up, there
Hmm.
was it was actually a hole in the cliff, but you could reach it from the top. And I found it
Oh,
tucked
you're
in there.
kidding.
But it took me a good like 20 minutes after my, death hold to find it. But that was one of the proudest caches at the time for like I finally found this thing, and I
Right.
didn't kill myself despite my best attempts.
Sure, sure. I really two real quick stupid stories I've done in the past. Once I was in a forest preserve and there was a cache on the top of a hill and there's a really really steep hill. It was one of those like you're climb. I mean, it was like this, like you're a struggle. Like you need to pull the trees, pull yourself up the trees. And I'm
Right,
like,
right.
this is a really high terrain for a low terrain. What's going on? I get to the top of the hill and it's a sled hill. I climbed up the back of the sled hill. The other side had stairs, and it was nice and an easy slope.
I've done similar things. Actually, the second cache I tried to find, which was in France, oddly enough, it was a puzzle cache. In the first stage, you had to go to the top of this slag pile. It was like an old mine slag pile.
Hmm.
It was now a fairly nice park. So we walk along, and when we get to it, we're faced with this wall, this big pile of rock, probably 100 feet high, and it was steep, like 60 degrees steep kind of thing. Like no way you're just going to walk up. So I
Hmm.
figured, not being like my second cache, and I had a coworker with me and my wife, so I didn't want to wuss out. So I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to climb up there. So I'm climbing up there, and keep in mind, at the time I was basically a couch potato, and if I wasn't walking on flat ground, I probably wasn't walking anywhere.
Right.
So this was a huge, acrobatic undertaking at the time. Even now it's kind of crazy, but then it was like unthinkable for me to do this. But I had my pride, and I went up there, and we got to the top, and we looked around, and we realized on the backside was this really nice, gentle, sloping path.
Yeah, it's always you always find the easy way and the way out, man. It's the way it
That's right.
works. All right, one more story. I was out with a cacher named I See It, and we got a canoe, and we're canoeing around a forest preserve, hitting the islands in this really huge forest preserve. And one of the ones we wanted to hit a faraway island, and what you had to do is you had to canoe to it. And we wanted to let you know we rented this canoe, so you have to canoe to it. So we had to canoe to the other side of the water, get out, carry the canoe about probably 500-600 feet, get back into the water, and then go again. So it was in another water thing. So we hop, we out, we go, we get to the island, we get the cash, got the cash, yay, signed in, got back. We go back, get out of the water, get back in the water, back to the canoe rental place. I left my GPS on the island.
Oh, oh.
Yeah, I'm notorious for leaving my GPS place. This is why I have it around my neck, and it never, ever, ever comes off my neck. Because if it does, it will stay at the cache. So I always leave it around my neck. But yeah, so we had to get back in the canoe and go back. Yeah, he was so not happy with me about that. Yeah, he was not happy at all. Some
So
more. Go ahead.
from the Q&A, Wet Coaster responded that his first find was called the TARDIS, and
Oh,
really
nice.
wished he could have used it to go back in time.
No, dude, 5 years West Coaster. That's brutal, man. What I want to know, West Coaster. What is your year? What is it? What is the number of days? That stat is there. I want to know what the number of days is. Really, I do. Q&A from Pam. Pam says, "This is a good one. I drove an hour to do a hike to a cache that is back in a gulch and forgot my GPS. No
Oh,
way a phone would work back there. So she hiked. She drove an hour and then hiked to a cache that is back in a gulch and brought no GPS.
that's
That's
heartbreaking, really.
That's that's I might literally go buy a GPS. Just I'm not getting all the way back home.
Yeah,
You
probably me
know?
too.
Yeah.
Uh, and a Q&A from Limax. He said, I've climbed up sled hills too in Massachusetts, but thankfully I parked on the correct side.
Yeah, right. It's always on. Yeah, that's my only defense I could say is that was early in my caching career, and now I know better. I'd probably walk around the hill just to make sure that there's an easier side.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just
I, I remember doing this cache just near the next town over, and it was based on a train track. So there was actually, over time, they had three different train lines that went through and over this creek.
mhm.
So there was like really old bridges, then semi-old bridges, and then the current bridge. So it was kind of fun and historical. But to get there, I couldn't find any way to get across except by actually fording the creek, and the creek was probably 20 feet wide, about a foot deep, and it was like March, so it was really cold water. But I figured, hey, what the hey? I marched through, got soaked, uh, as you do when you walk through water, and I looked forever to try to find that cache. Couldn't find it. Couldn't find it. Couldn't find it. And I was crossing over back across the creek. I realized that if I looked up and to the left, there was a footbridge that brought me all the way over the creek to the other side. So I took the footbridge, and it brought me to a slightly different spot, and sure enough, there was the cache.
Yeah, it's amazing how that works, especially when you're early in your caching career. Like I love looking at my first log from when I found from my LPC. I'm like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen ever. It's always like,
Yeah,
the first time you ever saw all the caches that, I mean, I think I've seen everything now. Nothing surprises me rarely anymore. But like the first time, the first 100 you find, all the amazing first hides you first ever saw, and like you were just astounded by it. Like,
yeah,
wow, look at that birdhouse. I've never seen that before. That's the coolest thing ever.
yeah. Even LPCs are like, "Whoa, that
Right?
lifts! That's awesome!"
That's amazing. Why didn't I think of that? Like, look at that thing in the tree. It's hanging in the pine tree. That's incredible. Yeah, it's amazing how that works and how you just become so numb to it. It's a shame. It's like, I always say one of the best times I ever had geocaching was the summer of 2008, which was my first summer of geocaching. And just seeing all these first hides and just being amazed by it and seeing all these cool and discovering them, and that was just such a great, and I can never get that back. I'll never have that again. It's always gonna, now I know all the hides, and it's
Right. Actually,
that
actually,
first
that's
summer was so much fun.
yeah, that's when some of the gadget caches. There's a great geo trail in Jackson County in Georgia. It's called the Jackson County Heritage Trail, and they have an amazing set of gadget caches.
Hmm.
And that was the first time I did it last year when I was going caching in Georgia, the mega event. And that was the first time in a long time where I kind of got giddy again for all the hides, because they
Yeah,
were like
don't
super
yeah.
creative, like really, really
Mm-hmm.
incredibly well done, thinking
Hmm.
outside the box type of hides. And it was
Hmm.
like, this is awesome.
Yeah, it's a shame you don't get
Yeah,
it's like I love geocaching. It's in my blood. I'll be doing it probably to the day I die. But like it's just it's hard to get that, you don't get really get excited anymore. It's more of just it's your hobby. It's something you do and it's something you enjoy. Now it's more about the adventure and the hike than it is about the find, to me
exactly.
now.
Yeah,
But it's yeah, I miss those days when everything was new,
that's
and all the hides were new. It's like I haven't seen I think the last time I saw really cool hides was Geo Woodstock. What was it? 12? Is that what it was last year? When
yeah. St. Charles.
they had a gadget. They had like a gadget trail there, and
Yeah, I
there
did
were
that
some
too.
really cool hides on that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's probably the last time I was excited about. Like, oh, that's really cool.
yeah. That's why
Yeah,
sometimes to go out with newbies,
just to
take
see
one
their
their first hide,
reaction.
just yeah, as you can so you can see it again through their eyes.
Yeah. Wet Coaster responded to me. It says no stat about how many actual days it has been. No stat since I didn't have a find until 2012. Does that matter? Should he still have a stat?
No, because they wouldn't know when he actually looked, and I'm guessing he didn't log a DNF.
Oh.
So
Oh. We got one from Buffalo Bob here in the Q&A. It says, while kayak caching, I docked to grab a cache really quick. Logged in, turned her back around, kayak was gone. Oh, man, that's brutal. Actually, not gone, just floating downstream. Fortunately, it got hung up in a low water spot about 300 yards downstream. That is awesome, dude.
300 yards, you could put a whole other cache in there.
You looked around for a new one. 300. Just running after that thing. Just, oh my God, terror. All right, so getting back to getting back to our things here. Okay, so you read. It's you.
All right. To wrap this up, thanks to everyone who submitted their stories for this show. We have a little surprise for you. There's a Seahorse Valentine from coinsandpins.com going out to one of you lucky contributors.
And we have seen it, and it's beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
It's a seahorse love thing. It's gorgeous. It's got a heart on it and everything.
Brings a tear to my glass eye. Daryl and I have talked about it a little before the show and decided that the story most deserving of that coin was Redbeard 4570, which was the story of the snakes and the charger. And
the name drop. God bless you, dude. Thank you. Didn't even know I was going to be here today, and he name dropped. So congrats, Redbeard 4570. Make sure to email GeoGearHeads at Cashemaniacs.com with your mailing address and let us know you're the winner of the Foolish Casher story. Whether you've won a gift or not, make sure to stay with us for a moment longer to find out how to get your name in the drawing for next week's prize from coinsandpins.com.
But we really need to thank some folks, like coinsandpins.com for their donation of this and next week's prizes. Also to all the patrons who make this show and the delivery of all those prizes possible. If you're a patron, and you should have seen those donations charged for March. Thank you so much to all 38 of you. Watch the Patron and G Plus feeds for information about the April Patron Hangout, which we plan to book this weekend. And we really hope that you'll be able to join us. But most of all, thank you for joining us each week, sharing the show with your fellow cashers, and leaving us reviews in the iTunes and Stitcher. You are the reason we do this show each week, so thanks.
I can't read this without laughing. Now warm up your browsers. This is so Daryl, because we have a little searching fee to do for next week's prize. We want you to email GeoGearHeads at Cashemaniacs.com with the subject question 171 in the body to tell us your geocaching.com. Oh, shoot, I read that all wrong. With the subject geo question 171, period. In the body, comma, tell us your geocaching.com screen name and include the GC number of the first cache in Puzzler 26's presidential series. I want to make sure I read this right because it's a question. In the body, tell us your geocache screen name and include the GC number of the first cache in Puzzler 26 presidential series. Wouldn't that be number 1 if it's the first cache? Just, maybe a spoiler alert. I don't know, but wouldn't it be number 1? If you get the right answer to us by April 8th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, your name is dropped in the drawing for another one of those prizes from coinsandpins.com. So get your email, question 171, to GeoGearHeads at Cashemaniacs.com with your screen name and that GC number by April 8th, and you might be the winner for next week's show.
Just a quick note, 1848 days is the number from his count creation.
God. Dude, that's a clap, right? Wow, dude, that's impressive. 1848 is amazing. Love it. Wow. All right, continue. Sorry.
All right, so here's an awkward segue. Speaking of next week's show, join us live as Daryl hosts Puzzler 26 live from a studio. Puzzler 26 is a noted Metro Detroit hider who created amazing physical containers. You can find out more about those and how he created and conceives them at 6:10 p.m. Pacific, 9:10 p.m. Eastern on April 9th. Then we're talking with another cacher closer to my corner of the world for episode 172. Join Subway Mark on April 16th as we talk about mass transit caching. That things like trains and buses. A great way to cache when traveling. Then my buddy and podcast hijacker, Land Monkey, and his wife join us for episode 173 for geocaching with a kayak. Make sure you tie it to the dock. April 30th is another randomized show, so get your topics in for that one. We love covering your questions, tips, articles you found, and sharing your stories on those shows. Send us to them by calling 206-350-3647, emailing geogearheads at cashemaniacs.com, or using the SpeakPipe plugin from the cashemaniacs.com before April 29th. The final show on this week's coming attractions is May 7th show with the author of How to Puzzle Cache. That's more than a month of shows to drop in your calendar and send in your feedback. A whole month, people. The easiest way to get that list is through the upcoming show page on the the upcoming show page on the GeoGearHeads.com site. That's just a link away, or if you prefer, GeoGearHeads.com/upcoming.
And if memory serves, I think they've got the shows booked all the way through 2018, don't they?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah. Check the Cashmaniacs website at cashmaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave feedback by calling us at 206-350-3647. Call them today. By emailing GeoGearHeads at cashmaniacs.com or through social media. Your support helps keep cashmaniacs.com shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cashmaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. This show is copyright 2015 by Daryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.